today's topic, I want to run through my career. I'm just going to talk beginning to end. I'm basically going to really briefly touch on every job I ever had, how I got the job, maybe tell an anecdote from each one, and why I left or whatever, and kind of the pay and the overall experience. So, first job in high school, I was just like on the lookout for how can I make money, always looking for how can I make money, scheming. Anybody have a lead? How can I make money? And I would even like apply at like all the big box stores, but I was like 16 and my resumes just were disregarded. I mean, I had no resume, I had no work experience. No one gave me a chance. 15, 16. A kid was working at a family Italian restaurant, kind of semi fancy in town. And he was like going away for like a week vacation. And he just like mentioned it. And I'm like, can I cover for you? Can I get a job there? I'm really trying to make money. So I covered for this guy while I was in high school, a week in a fancy Italian restaurant. I was vegetarian, strict vegetarian, never prepared or ever had like seen meat. And like first day I'm there, they're like in the kitchen, like, all right, mix with your bare hands this giant tub of like ground beef and stale bread to make like the meatballs and all these eggs, slimy. And I was just like I had a hard time. I had to get some. They didn't have food grade gloves to mix with, so I got like some kind of trash bags. I was like mixing it. I was like so determined to not be a quitter and just do the work. So then I moved up to Oregon, and right when I got out of high school, got a roommate like the day of getting out of high school, more or less, with my best friend, and rent was like maybe like 275 a piece for a 2-bedroom apartment in the middle of downtown Eugene, Oregon. And so the first two kind of real jobs I had, if you're from Eugene, you've heard of Venture Data. It's this firm. It's just a cubicle farm, and they had these computers from the 80s, just like monochrome, lowest budget computers, and there's maybe like 300 people in there, multi floors, and they just do political surveys. So if you've ever received those calls where it's like, how likely would you be to vote in the next election, and who would you choose? Like, it was a good chance that this was the firm that does those calls. I'm sure there's other ones that do it as well, but they're like one of the main ones who uh, any it could be political, it could be advertising. Like say Colgate toothpaste, like they want to run a commercial that says one in every, or they want to run a commercial that says like 4 out of 5 people prefer Colgate. And so in order to have a commercial like that, they pay this huge budget to run a telemarketing market research survey. So yeah, some of them were market research, some of them was political. Same thing, it could be the Democratic Party of some state has some state election, and so they fund this big survey. And from that job, I learned, I used to think when I saw data like that, like when I was watching the evening news on TV, and they would be like, 48% of Americans support this thing. I used to like think that that meant something when I saw that data. And then after having this job at Venture Data, doing these political surveys, I learned that all those survey data that you see, that it means basically nothing. It's all based on who's paying for the survey. And so in the job, you're required to read it verbatim. You can't deviate from a script at all. Um, it's literally word for word, verbatim, and you can't even interject one idea of your own, like, well, I think that this question means this, or change a word. Um, and because it could make the surveys like more biased if you tried to explain what the questions were. And so the questions were just like so misleading, and they would be like, this other political candidate, a lot of people hate him, and a lot of people are suspicious of his background and all this bad stuff. And then the question would be like, now knowing all that, would that change your opinion on this election or something? Like, completely just like badgering weighted questions. And yeah, so I did that, and I learned that that's all bullshit. Every survey data you ever see, I was making, I think, like $7 an hour, and did that for, I don't know, 6 or 10 months or something. And a bunch of it's a bunch of degenerates like to this day who work there. It's all like the rejects of society. It's like the Burning Man people and the dreadheads and the Rasta dread stoners and the super and the hardcore punks, like Mohawk type punks. And uh, there was like all the managers who worked there were like hot 90s punk girls. I used to just like, they would be like way older than me. I was like 18, and I would just like always hit on all these girls. Uh, Cute 90s Pacific Northwest kind of punk vibes. And I left just in a rage one day. I just walked out. Then I got a job. I was just desperate. I had to make rent. And I just was like literally walking down the street. And this was like 2001. And so the internet applications were beginning to become a thing where you apply online for everything. But it's still, I would say the majority of places it still was, even if you were all up to date on the internet, not everywhere else had caught up. So it still was, you go in person, you have a folder with your resumes, and you're like, is the manager here? I want to apply. And then you like hand it in. You're like, yeah, I'm looking for a job, blah, blah, blah. And so like literally I needed a job so bad that I didn't even put any thought into like, well, what could I do for the most money? I just like walked down the street and like job application, job application, job application, job application. I have my folder, and I just applied at like every store, like Staples, Office Depot, like down the street, every single spot. And then so I got a job by that technique at a U-Haul center, renting out trucks, and tons of really funny stories to tell there. But basically, I learned how to drive a manual transmission car by just being on the job and not knowing shit about professionalism or work or how to ask for help or just not knowing anything, just being a kid, 19 years old, 18 years old. And they're just like, go park all these 26-foot trucks. And all the 26-footer U-Hauls, that's the biggest size they make. At that time, they were all manual. So the smaller ones were automatic, but the 26-footers were manual. And so they were like these 1983 international brand giant trucks. Like, it's surprising you can even operate those with just a regular license. And I'd be like, I don't know how to drive a stick. And the manager is just like, you'll figure it out. And like, so that's how I learned. And I was just like so nervous going out there, parking trucks, and so many funny stories. If you're interested, I'll tell stories about that on a video if you're interested about it. But um, anyways, it was 7.25 an hour, and it's crazy the amount of responsibilities you had. You had to open and close a store by yourself, make bank deposits at the end of the day, carrying like $10,000 cash in a bank deposit bag, and carrying the keys to the store, and transferring equipment, calling all the other stores in the area, and like managing the computer schedule, getting the equipment transferred to the right place, and occasionally even having to take trips where in a rare situation you got to like take one of the U-Hauls and like put a tow trailer on it and drive it up to like the next city over because there's no other way you can get the equipment there. And occasionally stuff like that would come up. And then even installing hitches, like literally drilling into people's car. And and it's funny thinking of that. I was like such a not a mechanic dude at like 19, and I'm like operating like an industrial like vertical press drill with people's car up on a rack and like drilling into the frame of people's car and bolting in a hitch and wiring brake controllers and brake lights and so much stuff. And because rent was only, like I said, it was like $275 each, me and my roommate. There was no incentive to, as a 19-year-old, all I'm thinking about is like, okay, You need a job to eat and pay the bills. And after that, I get to do what I really want, which is skateboarding and hanging out with my friends and playing music. And that's what I really want to do. And everyone needs a job. I accept that. So, okay, I'll just do this. And like, yeah, the pay is really low, but what's the difference between 7.25 an hour or 8.25 an hour? Like, it's all low. Like, there was no good pay you could get. So I was just like, whatever, it's lower pay, but it's kind of fun. I can mess around a little bit. And so I ended up doing that for like more than a year, and which is insane thinking back on it now. Like, this, I think, is showing the lack of guidance. Like, I just didn't have a lot of parenting in my life, and anybody adult in the room who's been through the workforce and learned things, um, they would have set me straight. Like, dude, what are you doing? You're making $7 an hour. Like, cut the crap. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to aim for a better job. Um, but I just wasn't thinking that way. I just thought if you have a job, okay, that's covered. You got a job. Like, that's literally how I was thinking. So I did that for like a year when I was 19. Before that, I had a summer job at U of O. They thought I was a college student, but I was just a random high school kid that just moved there. And I got a job that's meant for college students, selling U of O duck merchandise, U of O gear. And so a lot of times it was in the warehouse packing orders like Amazon, just like packing boxes of University of Oregon gear. And but then the exciting part would be like every weekend throughout the summer, we would have, there was like a food truck cart, but it was all U of O gear. It was like t-shirts and hats and stuff. And that was like a really fast-paced atmosphere. And we would bring the trailer to Autzen Stadium, where the Ducks football field is. And it was just like all day long, just like a line of people. You just couldn't sell enough duck merchandise. Sweatshirt, hat, shirt, boom, 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 boom. And had like a special ID, and it was before 9/11, so security wasn't the same back then. And so I had like my special like clearance to have access to the stadium. So on my lunch breaks, I would just go see how good of access I could get. I'd see how far I could get in the stadium with my little badge, even though it was completely in areas like you're not even supposed to be in, like areas that I don't have access to as just like a merchandise salesperson. But I would just like walk in, and so I ended up like walking my way into like the tunnels where like only the football players go, like where they come out of the tunnel onto the field. And um, and I got to like stand like right at the field levels, just like like the whole place screaming. And I had never seen that kind of energy before when I was like 18. Just like full on screaming sports stadium, and I was like standing like right on the field, like right in the middle of it. And that was a cool little experience at that job. I don't remember why. I think it was just seasonal. I think the season ended, and that was why that job ended.